includes long-term, short-term, material, intangible. And those capabilities, I think I mentioned last class, military power, probably most important, economic power, which is GDP, and territory. So if you read this book, international relations is about countries seeking those capabilities, right? They seek military power. They seek economic power, GDP. They seek territory. They seek, today's class, advantageous locations. Geography. What's the specific? It's part of realism. Okay, it's part of realism because it's all about power. Advantageous locations, good geography provides countries with power. Very important. Very important. But I mean, all these capabilities, different power elements, they do not exist in isolation. Okay, they combine. Maybe they reinforce with each other. So location, geography, which is the focus of today's class, very important. But our textbook, just one section, they mention geography and the discipline that devotes to this type of study, like a geography location, that is geopolitics. Geopolitics. I think realism tended to kind of ignore this sub-discipline called geopolitics, especially in the Western world. American academia, they try to ignore geopolitics for some reason. But geopolitics flourished in the 19th century. 19th century, early 20th century, because it made a lot of sense at that time. Okay? Geography explanation made a lot of sense in explaining causes of World War I, World War II, or 19th century European balance of power. So geography really mattered those times. But geography began to lose meaning in the 20th century under US hegemony. Like a Cold War, geography almost disappeared in the lexicon of II. Especially in the Western world, like an American scholarship, geography, kind of almost disappeared during the Cold War. Now, I want to emphasize, why do we have a specific class on this? Geography and geopolitics seems to be coming back in the 21st century, today. So, geopolitics and especially energy geopolitics. Geopolitics, matters for trade. Geopolitics, combines with other power factors. Geopolitics, countries care about good locations to have, advantageous trade routes, okay? And countries care about locations, good locations, to extract natural resources, which is energy geopolitics. So if you look around today, countries began to care again about locations, to have advantageous trade positions, or to extract natural resources today. Hence, geopolitics coming back. So that's why we have to pay some attention to just one paragraph in our textbook, which is mentioned just in passing. I'd like to begin by directing some of our attention to 19th century geopolitics. Again, based on the text towards the end of chapter 1, like 19th century IR, World War I, then Cold War, post-Cold War, I want to link this issue of geography and geopolitics to different stages of IR. In other words, how geopolitics, or more specifically, energy geopolitics, played out in different stages of IR. That's the question for today. I already made important point. Geopolitics flourished in the 19th century Europe. Okay, and geopolitics was behind World War I, World War II. Okay, then Cold War period, geopolitics kind of lost meaning. Then post-Cold War era, especially after 2010, geopolitics came back. This is summary of how geopolitics played out in different stages of IR. Let's begin with 19th century. How geopolitics played out in 19th century Europe and probably 19th century Asia Pacific as well. Now, begin with this. Probably most controversial location for European countries in 19th century European international relations was this place. Okay? What is this place called? Crimean Peninsula. This was hotspot, one of the hotspots in 19th century geopolitics. And Russia had a war here, the Russo-Crimean War. Many wars in the Crimean Peninsula. So question is, why? What's the importance, geopolitical importance of this place, Crimean Peninsula? And my point here is that if you look over hundreds of European or probably world history in modern period, was Russia suffered a lot. Russia suffered a lot from disadvantageous geography. Crimea stands for Russia's fate, geopolitical fate. This is Russia. Russia is surrounded. This is Arctic. So Russia is surrounded by ice on the north, and in the Baltic Sea, again surrounded by hostile countries. Okay? And most of these ports are frozen. Probably this peninsula, on the tip of this peninsula, you have very important port. The name of port is Sevastopol. The port, Sevastopol. This is one of very few warm water ports for Russia. Okay? You can operate naval ships or commercial ships from here. Okay, it's important for exports products. It's important for naval operations. Now, Russia had wars with whom? Western countries. Western countries. Okay? But this is today's map. At that time, Turkey was which country? Turkey was empire, Ottoman Empire. Okay? Turkey was stretching all the way here, like this. All of this area, including Middle East, entire Middle East, some parts of Africa. This is all Ottoman Empire. Okay? Ottoman Empire began in the 15th century and expanded its power for 200, 300 years. Therefore, Russia was weakened by Ottoman Empire. But the Ottoman Empire began to weaken beginning 17th century. Okay, 17th century, 18th century. Now, this is an opportunity for Russia. Russia began to expand through these warm water ports. Now, the Ottoman Empire asking help for Western countries. So, the Crimean War, there were 13 different kinds of Crimean wars between 18th century and 19th century. 13 of them. Two most important ones, 1783. The first Crimea, 1783. Russia on one end, British, French alliance on the other. Okay, Russia on one hand, British-French alliance on the other. And Turkey. Okay, so Western countries came to the assistance of the Ottoman Empire to defeat Russia. This is a repeated pattern. Western countries working together with Turkey to defeat Russia. This is a repeated pattern after these years, into the 20th century. So the first Crimean War, 1783, at that time, Russian leader was Catherine II, the woman, Catherine II. So Russia win the first war. Okay, British, French alliance, along with Turkey, that they are defeated. So Russia occupied Crimea Peninsula. 1783 under Catherine II. This is similar to Putin's occupation today of Crimea Peninsula. So Russia occupies Crimean Peninsula, detached it from Ottoman Empire, and got this important port, Sevastopol. Then what should be the next step for Russia? The next step should be moving out to the sea. This is what Russia wants. Go out to the open sea. This is the most important objective of Russia. Through the port, go out to the sea. And trading and naval operation. But there's a problem. To go out to the sea, you need to get over another obstacle. You have very narrow straits here. Narrow straits here. Two narrow straits you have to pass to get out to sea, open sea. In other words, Mediterranean Sea. Once you get out to the Mediterranean Sea, through these Turkish straits, then you can reach the Middle East. Okay, you can reach the Middle East or go out to the Indian Ocean and all the way to the Pacific. This is the goal of Russia. But Russia got this port, but Russia didn't get the right to pass these straits. Okay, because Turkey had to allow, Ottoman Empire had to allow the passage through the straits. Do you know the name of these straits? Because the reason why I emphasize this, there are many important strategic locations in world politics. This is one of those places. Okay, Crimean Peninsula, the port in the Crimean Peninsula, and the straits, Bosphorus Strait, and Dardanelles Strait. These are really strategic locations. And Russia, Turkey, and Western countries, for hundreds of years, they keep on struggling to occupy these strategic geographical locations for hundreds of years. Still today. Yes.
What were the name of the straits?
Straits. The first one, Bosphorus. Bosphorus. Bosphorus Strait. The second one, Dardanelles. Dardanelles. So these two twin straits you have to pass to go out to the Mediterranean Sea. So for a long time, Russia was blocked. Okay? Therefore, Russian economic opportunity was limited for a long time. But Catherine II broke that obstacle the first time, 1783, through the First Crimean War, which Russia defeated, British-French ally, combined with Turkey, Ottoman Empire. But in the First War, Russia didn't get the passage right. Okay, straight passage right. Russia got the port, but Russia didn't get the passage right. So there was Second War. Second War broke out. When was the Second War? 1856. We learned this in high school. I don't know, in your country. We learned this over and over again in high school textbooks. Second War, 1856. Actually, it was war from 1853, 1856. So it ended 1856. This time, second time, Russia lost. So British-French ally defeated Russia and Turkey, Ottoman Empire defeated Russia. Russia was defeated. So Russia didn't get the passage right. In other words, Russia could not have full-scale naval operation because of this. So that Russia could not have, full swing commercial operation and naval operation in the Mediterranean Sea, which is the goal of Western countries. This is the problem Russia faced for a long time, even today. So Russian geopolitics for hundreds of years is to break this obstacle, okay, to obtain warm water ports. one more port in the Black Sea, and to pass Turkish Strait. So Russia has to have a very good relationship with Turkey because of this. Now, this map. So this map shows Russian geographical disadvantages in the Black Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. This map shows Russian geographical disadvantages in the north, in the Baltic Sea. In the Baltic Sea as well, Russia is not advantageous. Russia is sort of surrounded by different countries, hostile countries. Okay? The same problems in the Baltic. This map shows today's Mediterranean Sea. Okay? Today's Mediterranean Sea. After 2014 Russian occupation, Putin's occupation of Crimean Peninsula, and the same Sevastopol port, and refurbished navy, and Russian naval forces in the Mediterranean Sea against U.S. Western naval forces. Today, this is the map of today. Syrian crisis. Yes.
So just talk about like the disadvantages of Russia, like in the 19th century. So like we know that in 1905 and 1904, Russian fought against Japanese fleet. So and the Russians
In the
fought-
Asia Pacific.
Exactly. So was it also the biggest factor for Russia to lose against Japanese?
Oh yeah. I show you maybe next slide in the Asia Pacific, because Russia is kind of straddled between two continents. One foot in the European, the other foot in the Asia Pacific. So Russia was, as you can see here, restricted geographically in the Western Front. How about in the Eastern Front? That's the question he's asking. Eastern Front in Asia. When Russia is blocked in the West, Russia turns east, right? Historically, this is the orientation of Russian foreign policy. When Russia is blocked in the West, turns east. Yes, Russia began to, in our definition, in the Asia Pacific. Okay, let me talk about this first. This is the map of Asia Pacific. Okay, map of Asia Pacific. This is South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, South China Sea. Okay, so this is the entire Asia Pacific. How about Russian geopolitics in the Asia Pacific then? Yes, in the 19th century, Russia tried to, in our definition, tried to turn in the Asia Pacific south. Okay, so Russia's southern policy began in the 19th century. So Russia is here. They began to move southward. South Korea, Korean Peninsula, was important strategic beachhead for Russia. Okay, in the 19th century, linking railroads and infrastructure all the way down to ports in South Korea. So Busan, Masan. So some of the ports in North Korea. This is kind of warm water ports, because ports upward, like a Vladivostok and others, those are frozen. Okay? So Russia tried to occupy some of the nice warm ports in South Korea, and building railways all the way down to South Korea. This is kind of perception we are having when we look northward to Russia. We were witnessing Russia coming south. Okay, this is kind of Russian geopolitical moves in the 19th century. Now, 1905, the incident he mentioned, 1905, what happened? Russian-Japanese War, 1905. Okay? Because Russia was moving southward. Japan felt threatened by Russian moves. So 1905, finally they had a war. Who was defeated? The outcome was very surprising. Did Russia win? No. Japan won. Why? How could Japan win? Now let me show you why geography, geopolitics, or some ports are critical. Ports are really critical. 1905 Russian-Japanese War proved the value of geopolitics. What is this? Suez Canal. Okay? This is canal built by French, but later owned by Egypt. What's the geopolitical value? If you pass this canal, it will shelve a lot of distance, right? This much. So if you move around African continent, it will be from India. It will be almost 13,000 miles. Okay, but if you pass the canal in Egypt, which is Suez Canal, it will be only 7,000 miles. Now, why this determined the outcome of Russo-Japanese War? Suez Canal turned out to be deterministic for the Russo-Japanese War. Now, Russia Japan felt threatened by Russian moves, and at that time, British Navy, Japanese Navy, they had secret agreement. So Great Britain asked Japan to block Russia, okay, moving southward. Russian naval ships, they were moving all the way around African continent, through the Indian Ocean, right, and reaching Japanese ports. Imagine how many days it took, several months, without, stopping over any. If you have friendly allies, it's a huge plus for naval operation, right? Ports. But Russia didn't have those, so it took a lot of, time reaching Japanese ports. And when they finally faced Japanese Navy, they didn't have any strength. Why? Because Japan asked Great Britain to block the Suez Canal. So Russia had to move all the way around the African continent. Not 100%, but very important reason why Japan win the war with Russia at that time, which is the importance of ports, importance of locations. Now, let me show you another canal. What is this? Panama Canal. Right? This is Panama. And this is another canal linking the Atlantic Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Okay? Panama Canal, when did Panama Canal open? 1914. Okay, 1914. America constructed it, opened it. Why? 1914, think about that. Just before World War I broke out. Now, 19th century, America was, looking inward, okay? European imperialist wars going on, globally, but America kept some distance from European imperialism, and America focused on economic development inside America throughout 19th century. Okay, innovation, economic innovation, technological innovation. So accumulated strength, economic strength throughout 19th century, keeping some distance from European imperialism. When they decide that their power was enough, okay, they began to participate in global affairs. And our textbook says the belated American participation in global politics kind of explains World War I and World War II, because there was power vacuum. British was on the decline, but America was not moved quickly enough to fill the gap of declining British power. So that's some of the reasons behind World War I and World War II. But once America decided to participate, at that time, American strategic thinking was maybe America can have two directions of trade or military relations. Okay? On one hand, European countries, Atlantic, okay, Atlantic orientation. The other, Pacific. I don't know which was more important, but America had two directions. To participate in the Pacific trade and Asia-Pacific international relations, this is very critical. This is very critical. Panama Canal, 1914. So this opened the way to Pacific trade, Panama Canal. Then when America looks to the Pacific Ocean, America began to look to the Pacific Ocean. They see which countries will be useful midway kind of islands for naval operations or any commercial operations. And so Philippines, very important. Philippines, very important. Right? And like the South Korea, Japan, right? Many islands, South China Sea. Very different from European countries. Many islands. Maybe different military operations. China is trying to build another canal, Nicaragua Canal. This is one of Belt and Road, important Belt and Road projects for China today. Okay? It's a rival projects for America. So these canals linking the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean will be important strategic locations. Another important location will be here. Somewhere around here, right? Here. What is this called? Strait. This important strait in South China Sea. The Strait of Malacca. The Strait of Malacca, here. So between Indonesia and Singapore. Very narrow. Very narrow. So maybe useful analogy can be made to the Mediterranean kind of geopolitics. Maybe South China Sea is Asia's Mediterranean. And if Turkish Straits were important locations in the Mediterranean Sea, important location in the South China Sea will be the Strait of Malacca. Two-thirds of commercial and energy ships pass this narrow strait. Okay? Then you get to South Korea, Japan. So ships departing from the Middle East, they have to pass this strait, narrow strait, protected by the US Navy, along with Singapore. China has a problem with this. China began to realize so-called the dilemma of Malacca, beginning the 1980s, because if America blocks this trade, China cannot import oil and gas from the Middle East. So that's the dilemma of Malacca for China. Therefore, China has long tried to break this dilemma. Like Nicaragua Canal, break this dilemma, building bypass route. There are several bypass routes. One of these bypass routes will be another canal passing Thailand. This is one of important Belt and Road projects for the Chinese government. So you construct canal, through Thailand, costing $26 billion. So you don't have to pass this. You pass the canal through Thailand. Then you can move from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean directly, without the interference of the US Navy. So this is the strait, the controversial strait in the Asia Pacific, in the South China Sea in particular. Now, all this importance of canals cannot be understood without reference to the rise of oil in world politics. Okay? The importance of oil in world politics. This must be discussed together. Now, 19th century, I think I mentioned the couple of waves of industrial revolution. And for each industrial revolution, different energy items